All right, so this is the class, just the class lecture for the first class of the character modeling course. Basically, what you're going to do in this course is you're going to model characters, two to be exact, and that's how it works. So you can see right here what's covered. Basically, we'll discuss character design concepts. We'll discuss what kind of geometry is necessary for articulation in characters. You know, how to create appealing or believable or realistic characters as well. Okay. You can kind of read this if you want, but basically the way this is going to work is that you are going to get weekly assignments, and you have two major projects. Okay, so every week you'll have one assignment, and you will hand that in, and each one of those are worth 10 points. Okay, so like the first week's a turnaround sketch, then the second week's blocking, the third week is refinement, UV, layout, and texturing. Okay, now each one, those 5 there, are all really inevitably steps to the cartoon character project. Okay, which that, when you're completed all these, will be your you'll get 50 points for it. Okay, so that's how that works. All right, so and then you'll also have, once you're done with that character, you will do the next one, and then these are your weeklies. So it'll be reference photos, blocking, refinement, head, blah blah blah, all the way down. Okay, so each week these are due. They're more or less kind of like completion grades, if you will, more than they are. Then I'm going to be really critical on them. I'm more just making sure that you did them. Okay, so if you don't do them, like you didn't do the turnaround sketch that week, but you do it the next week, it's too late. Okay, or you don't do blocking, because otherwise it gets kind of weird. So you just got to make sure you do each week's assignment, and then at the very end, then I'm going to critically grade your projects more from aesthetics, topology, more specific criteria. Okay, so there are two major projects. One of them is going to be modeling a cartoon character. It needs to be a biped, but it can be whatever you like. Okay, so just cartoony, something you see like on a Saturday morning cartoon or like a Pixar film or something like that. Okay, it doesn't have to be human, but it does have to be a biped, meaning it has 2 legs and it stands up. I want it to be a humanoid, if you will, or anthropomorphic, or however you want to put it. Okay. The second assignment, or second project that you're going to do, is to create a self-portrait. You're going to take pictures of yourself, and then, to the best of your abilities, try to make a realistic doppelganger. Okay? So, that being said, so be thinking about what you want to do there. Character modeling. Okay, so the process. So, like anything else, you have to remember that we are applied artists. So, the process in which we develop our artwork is important, because we want to be able to make consistently good work in a consistent timely manner. Okay, so first thing usually you do is you will design your character, usually through a variety of exploratory sketches. I mean, you just kind of draw a whole slew of things, like a buffet of character designs. Then usually you bring it in front of an art director or whoever the producer director is, and they will say, I like this on this one, I like that on that one, so on and so forth. Once that's done, or in this case it would just be yourself, then you tie it down. Okay, so what you'll do is you just draw really nice tight sketches of your character. In our case, you're going to create a turnaround sketch, which is basically just a sketch of a front view, 3/4, and side, but there can be more views than that too if you would like. Once that's completed, then you'll produce the primitives to block out the general shape. So you just use, your cylinders, spheres, and cubes basically to block out, such as you would see if you were doing hand-drawn conceptual models. Then what you're gonna do is you're gonna refine that. You'll connect them together to make it one whole shell, and refine the model. Add all the necessary details and things for eyes and fingers, and make it just tighter. Okay, and then you will also add more geometry in order to make sure the character can deform properly. Okay, so wherever there's an area of articulation where something's going to bend or flex, you need to have more edge loops there. Okay, in order for that to support that. So so if you look here, I need to have, so you see it's a little bit more dense here. It's because that's where the knee is. Okay, and you'll see that there's just certain ways. Like this is a sphincter muscle, so the mouth has a sphincter, so does the eye. And you can see like where the ankle is a little more geometry. But you try to add the correct geometry in order to support deformation. Once that's done, what you'll do is create your textures. All right, so you can see basically you will texture, paint apply materials and I'm sorry, even before you do that, you have to do UVs. So you have to take this character, lay it out, then you will paint and color it, and you will have a completed model. Okay. So let's talk about character design. One thing I do want to make a point is that regardless of what medium you're using, even if you're making something that's going to be a 3D film, you're going to watch it in Real D or something in virtual reality, or it's a video game, you are always looking at everything in a 2D view because you're looking at a screen. It's not a physical thing. So even if you do have a three-dimensional character, they can still be broken down. When you see their silhouette, they're still viewed as 2D shapes. Okay. So I'm just going to kind of go through and discuss what different shapes are. So number one are circles, okay? So circles basically are considered the cute shape. They're the least threatening, non-intrusive. You see it a lot for children's cartoon characters. The reason being is that, if I took a bubble and I threw it at you, or a ball, you'd go, oh, and you would catch the ball and you wouldn't feel threatened by it. So a lot of times cute characters and characters that are meant for especially little children. And you'll notice actually, as you see characters that are for littler and littler kids, they become more and more round. Okay? But that's basically what they're good for. You can look at Pokemon, right? They want all the characters to be cute. They're all circles, and then they throw stuff on them. Okay? A lot of times dopey characters are like that, but basically the really, really non-threatening characters typically are round. And it doesn't have to be so explicit. Like he obviously is all circles, but you can say he's circular, right? He's got a lot of circleness in him. Squares. Squares are your strong, unmoving, solid shapes, okay? So a lot of times the strong character is square. So if you look at here, Sully, you can see, he's not explicitly square, but you can see he's definitely implicitly, right? There's a lot of squareness in him. And you get this feeling that he's very strong. He's sturdy. He's reliable. It's an unmoving shape, right? And again, if you think of things that are square, like a brick or a house, or even if you look at like a tree, if you look at it in 2D, it looks rectilinear, right? Even though it's a cylinder. But anything, squares, or I shouldn't even just say squares, I should say rectilinear shapes, but they're 180 degrees and they're 90 degrees, right? So if you think about things like that, you have like a horizon line, which is strong, or like I said, trees going up vertical, which is strong. But things with 90 degrees are very stiff. They're unmoving, okay? Now, if you look at Carl, is that his name? I can't remember. But Up, amazing movie, right? If you look, this guy is nothing but squares. Everything about him is rectilinear, right? A lot of 90-degree things going on. And the whole story is about him not wanting to move on, right? He doesn't want to change. He doesn't want to progress. He just wants to stay in his house and just live like that, all right? Triangles. So triangles, basically angles less than 90 degrees, are your typically villains. They're the most threatening. They're also very directional. A lot of times the catalysts are triangles. So if you look at here, we have Joker, right? Everything on him is angular, right? And basically the more angular something is, the more acute or sharper the angle, the more threatening it is, okay? And again, think about, I always like to use the aquarium. I brought my kids to the aquarium, and they saw the dolphins, and they're like, oh, look at the dolphins, they're so cute. Dolphins are round. But then when they saw the sharks, they were scared. If you think about it, they're more or less the same shape, but the difference is the angles. Sharks have really sharp fins, sharp teeth, they're pointed. It gives that feeling of threatening, right? So anything, if I threw a knife at you, which has a sharp end on it, you're going to be threatened, right? Claws. Think of like a tiger, any, or fangs, like things like that are sharp, that have those angles are threatening. So it's just, you feel that internally, psychologically, that's there. Now you might remember this character, he's Gil, right? And be like, well, he's not a bad guy. But if you remember, they try to make him appear threatening at first. And this is where it gets kind of interesting, because what you could do is design a character like this that makes you think a certain way, but in the inside, they have a heart of gold. You know what I mean? Like the rough exterior, but the whatever on the inside, okay? And so sometimes that juxtaposition actually creates a more interesting character at least from a personality standpoint, than otherwise. So here's an example. I like to use Disney ones as examples, just because everyone's seen Disney films. But if you look at here, right, you can see Hades, right? All triangles. Everything about him, triangles, eyes, blah, 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 everything, right? Everything's angular. Then if you look over here, you see Hercules, very square. Square ears, square jaw, he's got a square chest here. You can see even his arm here is kind of squarish, right? They make a point because he's that strong, durable, solid guy. And then the dopey sidekick is round. Now, even here is a little bit of juxtaposition because he's actually kind of rugged, right? He's kind of mean and gritty, which goes against the way he looks. And they even play off of that, right? He's kind of a joke the whole time. A good example, actually, is this little sequence here. If you watch it, and let's see, I'm just going to turn the volume off. When she talks to the other mother, she gets upset and says, "You're not my mother." And then watch what happens. Right now, she's a little bit more threatening looking than, let's say, her actual mom. But when she gets really upset, you're going to see that she gets more and more angular, right? So watch as it's going to happen any moment now. All right. So here we go. And okay. Now watch. You'll see as she gets more and more angular, cheeks get angular, this gets angular, her hair gets pointed. It makes her more and more threatening. This is a much more threatening looking character than the other mother. And the reason why is because of those angles. Whole, repeating, and complementary shape. So when it's possible, your character should work as one whole shape. It should feel like one solid piece. A good example of not doing this is something like a snowman, right? Snowman's like 3 individual spheres stuck on each other. It doesn't feel whole. The arms are literally stuck on. It doesn't feel like a whole shape. So when possible, your character shouldn't look like pieces are stuck on. So even if you look at this character, it doesn't work as a whole shape so well, okay? My Robin here. But he works pretty well, and he's not too bad. Now, another thing you can do is repeating shapes. So if you look at Batman here, you can see that he's got this triangles here. He's got triangles for eyes. He's got triangle kind of here, triangle for feet. He's got kind of a rounded squareness about him. When you can repeat the same shape over and over, it makes all the pieces come together stronger. Another thing you do is the complementary shapes, and the idea is this. If you look at, like, let's say Robin here, you can see that this head shape here is the same on his chest, and it's also the same, it's reverse of each one of these, so they complement each other, but they're relatively similar, okay? Make sure when you do your designs that you use C's, only C, S, and straights. Don't do anything above that. You want to use both straight lines and curved lines. If you do all curves, it's going to look kind of sausagey. If you do all straights, it's going to look very mechanical and not very good. So you want to mix up those kind of lines, but you never go above an S curve. So right here, I just took a random example from the internet, something from Looney Tunes. But if you look, you can break down each one of these lines. So there's like a C, then to an S. This one's a C, 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 C. Here's an S, another S, a C, an S, a straight, an S, but you can break down all of these, and nothing is more complicated than a C or an S curve. They are all those basic shapes. You can kind of look at it as, this whole thing, this one picture could be like a novel, right? And each, culmination of lines is like a paragraph, and each one of these lines is like a line of text in a paragraph, okay? Now, you want to have nice, clean lines that read well, that you can read from one to the next to the next. You don't want to have run-on sentences. You don't want to have things that don't go anywhere. You want to have correct punctuation, things like that, okay? So just make sure that you're trying to maintain only using C curves, S curves, and then straights as well, okay? So for your first time, what you're going to do is do a turnaround sketch. You can kind of just follow this along here, but basically the idea is you do a front, 3/4, and profile, okay? I did a quick video here where I did it inside of Photoshop. You don't have to do it in Photoshop, but what I want you to do is, after you draw it, scan it in, and make it into image planes, which I go through the process of that in here as well. I draw it in here, and then what I do is I just overlap them on top of each other, make the image planes, and I import them into Maya, okay? So at the end of this, what you should do is have your turnaround sketch, and you should have it imported into Maya so that you're ready to use it as a guide to model. All right, and that is it.